All right. Go!
News your button. New warrior now.
This park.
Microphone check 1, 2. What is this?
News your button. New warrior now.
Parks on the boards.
Yes!
Like, growing up, I don't know if y'all have relatives that maybe aren't best friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not distance ones, like direct.
As a kid coming up, you hear the different sides of the family that may not get along, or maybe they get along, but maybe don't think the highest of each other, right? And I think I can remember just remnants of that. Like when my great granddad got this swampland, he had 6 kids or 7 kids or something crazy. So he got this swampland, and they built houses and shit, right? So my granddad's house was very small on one part of this land, but Uncle Hazel's house was huge. Uncle Hazel had a big shed, yard, all the cars, tractors, trailers. Like, he was in charge of the pig pen. He had 700 pigs. So it's like, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but my perception coming up was always that my granddad's kids were the poorer, less something kids, and then Hazel's kids had all the money. So as a kid, you're growing up and you're looking at that. So I dug into that a
That
little
happens
bit.
pretty often in a lot of families.
And what I learned was that my great granddad, my grandfather went off. He left at 19 or something and went to the army. While Hazel stayed.
World War II?
I didn't even ask.
Okay.
He went off to the army, and my uncle stayed with my other uncles and fucked with the pigs. And they had a lot of pigs. So in my head, I'm like, well, why the fuck would granddad go to the army and not stay and work on this pig pen where everybody seems to be making all the money? And then I was told that, well, if he didn't do that, I don't get here, because that's where he met my grandmother. See, and I'm super intrigued by this stuff.
Yeah.
So those are 2 decisions I probably would have never made, but it led him to my grandma and so forth and so on, and the story goes on. But the more I got into this story, because I was like, all right, well, the richest Budden made how much?
Well, now I know where your pork addiction comes from.
And they was like,
It's in your lineage.
they said, listen, Hazel, he was getting millions. Like,
From the pig farm?
millions. Yeah. And I said, well, explain that to me, because I remember the pig pen, but tell me why it's millions. And this is what I learned, and this was super interesting, and then I'll end this shit.
Sure. It's actually
Apparently-
a fun discussion.
I'm
You don't
very
take it.
interested.
Yeah.
Apparently, at that time, back in the day in the South, to have 10 pigs was a big deal. And
Pig, livestock in general is still pretty expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a lot of livestock currently, you're doing fairly well.
you would be more knowledgeable of that than me.
I just have some friends
I'm ignorant
that
to
they're,
any farming. How do you make the money off the pigs to slaughter them, or
You sell them to the
Just-
butcher, I believe.
okay? Is that
Well,
how
most-
they make the money off the pigs?
Well, most people sell them to, right? And it costs a lot, because it costs a lot. The more pigs you have, it costs more to feed them.
Yeah.
So my granddad had to have 700 pigs
It's a lot of pigs.
is ridiculous.
Pigs aren't small either.
No.
Peep his hustle that I didn't know about. He had these pigs, and Campbell Soup was paying him to get rid of their waste.
Oh, wow.
That waste kept feeding his pigs.
Oh, shit.
And then they kept
Yeah.
Wow.
for years and years and years.
Kept fucking.
That's crazy.
What the hell? What a hustle. So now I'm super intrigued. I'm like, well, tell me more. So, yeah, all my uncles and cousins and shit, they was working on the pig pen. And I said, how did it stop? And they said apparently they changed the agriculture farming rule, or there was a rule that said you can no longer feed waste to the animals. I said, oh, they fucked up the hustle. And they said, no, it didn't. because then he broke the law. I said, well, what did he do? He said he went out to Pinewood with his tractors and he dug up a bunch of holes all throughout Pinewood, which is just like swampland. Uh-huh. And when he was getting this, he was feeding them and dumping shit in there. But then that apparently polluted the water system in the whole South Carolina. So they caught him. And then my cousin Dwayne went to jail for it. Not even Hazel.
Wow.
So he went to jail short bid for ruining the water in South Carolina with that hustle. I said, so was that the end of it? They said, no. Not at all. Dwayne went away, and what Campbell's did was they put Hazel in charge of the assembly line. What's an assembly line? The assembly line where the chickens' heads are cut off. So every morning, my cousins and all of them went and took the chickens as the heads was chopped off and went and did whatever they had to do with it. And that was the new hustle with them and Campbell's and the assembly line and chickens and all this shit that I found super interesting.
Oh, it's super. I wish that my grandparents were still alive so I could get more information.
Yeah.
Like my great-grandfather was an artist who worked on the railroad. So he didn't have a lot of money, obviously. That's not a very profitable lifestyle. But I would like to know more. Like, we have some of his paintings around still, but I would like to know more.
That stuff is interesting.
Yeah.
So apparently that's when my cousins was getting super high and drunk. In the morning, when they used to pick everybody up on the van, not they, because it's my family running this shit. It's my family, cousin, whoever, picking all my cousins up on the van. And now we're just getting drunk with the money for the week. Campbell's paying for the week. We just getting drunk. And people got rich like that because of loan sharks.
I was going to say, everything you were saying prior sounded very mob-esque. As far as the waste management, doing the scheme that ends up ruining a bunch of shit.
What a hustle, man.
Interesting.
What made your pops come up north?
My granddad was in New York. My granddad left him down South Canaan, New York. He went to the Army, and when he got out, he was in New York. So now my dad was in New York. Michael Paul's father was in New York. We was all in New York. But then when he was tired of New York, he went back down south, had a house there, him and his wife, kids, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
So he started down there. We got our own Budden cemetery down there. It's mad shit down there.
That's crazy.
They ran shit apparently. Like that, and that's what makes me want to dig into it.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because when I first got hired for you, I told my grandparents, my grandmother, she was familiar with you through Love and Hip Hop. But my grandfather, not so much. He doesn't watch that shit. And my grandparents, they're young. They're not even 60. So like they're on the younger side. They're in tune. My grandfather mentioned that you had family in the Carolinas. And I said, yo, fuck out of here. You don't know Joe Budden. You don't know nothing. You don't know shit. What are you talking about? He was like, yo. And he called a few of his friends from high school. And then there was a connection through my grandfather, through your family in the Carolinas that I thought he was just talking shit.
No.
But now that you kind of give the background, it's like, I want to call this nigga up and be like, yo,
you got it.
What was that connection that you knew Joe's family through this? And like, he knew uncles and again, I didn't know shit about shit.
South Carolina in that area, you have to know my cousins or uncles because they are lunatics.
Apparently.
It's a mess.
They're legends.
Mess. But my granddad and my great-granddad apparently was them dudes. And my Uncle Hayes, whatever hustle they had going on. So that's just interesting. That's all.
Crazy. Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never told Joe that before?
No, I thought my grandfather was bugging. I didn't know.
Crazy.
I didn't know the family tie. I didn't know. Your grandparents, older people, you just shrug them off because they just want to be in the know. They want to be in tune.
Sure.
So you're like, you don't know nobody down there. Like, and I don't have Southern ties.
Right.
But it went all the way back to his high school that he knew Buddens and shit that moved up to New York, and it was a real small connection. So I just said, fuck out of here. But
because there's some of them in Long Island.
Yeah, and my whole family is from Long Island.
They went to Long Island to get high.
Yeah,
it's a great place to get high,
and that's what was going on.
Factory shit, work or some shit, man.
Facts. So now that you say that, it's like, oh, my grandfather wasn't tripping.
No, you'll learn that once you get past the stage of not listening to older people. You'll learn that they was never tripping.
Yeah.
They was always right, and we just wasn't listening, didn't care. Shut your old ass up.
Yeah, it's real easy to take old people for being crazy, but they be knowing.
My son does it to me now, Trey. Like, I know you old, but I'd be like, I'm 40. It's not how you making it sound, buddy. Like, come on.
Word.
Cut me some slack. Like, he called me yesterday to check on me, which I love, right? I love that our kids, well, not our kids, but my kids doing it. But he did it with, like, you old voice. Hey, Pop, man, you good? Just checking on you, man. You breathing all right, man? Like, he did it like he thought I was clocking out sometimes soon. Like, yeah, little nigga, get on my phone, man. Fuck you want.